This break is brought to you by Netflix. Head on over to netflix.com/GameBreakerTV to sign up for a free 30-day trial. Now, Guild Wars 2 World vs. World is getting just a little bit bigger. That's because this weekend, ArenaNet's Eric Flannum did an interview, and with more information on the mini dungeons that are coming to World vs. World is GameBreaker writer Jason Winter. Jason?
Yeah, he describes this as a persistent mini dungeon that's designed with multiplayer PvP in mind, and players can do things like activate the traps in the mini dungeon to defeat enemy players, and there's a big chest full of loot at the end, so who doesn't want all that?
No, I mean, it sounds really like an interesting system here. What do you think of this? Do you think it sounds like a good addition to World vs. World?
It could be kind of a fun thing, but based on my limited experience in World vs. World and the betas and so on, I think it's kind of big enough already. I mean, my personal experience is that I ran around a lot. Yeah, it was tough to find battles, and when you're outside of like the big battle, the big Zerg ball or whatever, I don't really know that we need more space, especially if it doesn't have objectives like the keeps and so on above ground. I mean, Lotro did this, had a separate PvP dungeon under their PvP zone, and it was fun for a few weeks or months, but then it pretty much died off as people just would go down there to farm basically PvE materials and loot, and there was practically no PvP that went on down there.
But what if these mini dungeons, what if it had some sort of buff element? We see this in their organized PvP. We've seen it integrated in other games. What if there was more of a overall reason for players to go into this dungeon and try and kill this raid boss? It would almost bring a form of world boss PvE into something like World vs. World.
Yeah, and that's the one way it could work, is if they provide some other objective to it, especially one that has an effect on the overall World versus World. But
because loot, when you get loot, you don't care anymore. Once you don't need the gear, there's no reason to keep going back.
Right, exactly. Like I said, you have to have something that's outside of the more normal cycle of loot or gear or conquering the world or whatever. But I just think, though, that, like I said, World vs. World is so big as it is right now, this almost seems like it would have been better just to maybe hold off until an expansion or a big update a few months down the road.
Now, they also talked about there are 2 other instance PvP maps that are in development. What did Eric have to say this weekend about that?
Well, like I said, 2 more. As we know, they'll utilize control points, which all the PvP instances do in Guild Wars 2. And they'll also include their own unique mechanics, which, you know, sort of like the trebuchets in Battle of Kylo. Now, what I'd really like to see, though, is a largely underwater area. Someone brought up a great idea. I don't know if it was on the forums or if it was in the chat for Guildcast. Something like Blitzball from Final Fantasy X, if you remember that. Oh, I know. It was like a big underwater ball, and they had it was kind of like soccer. They had to go around and score goals with it, you know, like Hutball maybe.
I was gonna say, are we? Because all that is just Hutball underwater.
Basically, Hutball underwater. Yes. Well, probably no giant gouts of flame. Those might be a little inconvenient underwater.
Wait a second. Fire it underwater. I've seen it happen. I'm just saying.
Well, that's true. That's true. But yeah, I mean, they are so happy with underwater PvP or underwater combat in general, using 3 dimensions and all that. A PvP battleground underwater, I think, would be just phenomenal.
Yes. We will see. Obviously, there's a big beta weekend coming up in about 2 weeks. So maybe we might see it in World vs. World, but if not, it's definitely an interesting feature. For all of your Guild Wars 2 information, be sure to catch Guildcast every Tuesday at 6 p.m. PDT, as well as all of your other gaming news. We cover that right here on GameBreaker TV. So keep it tuned. We'll see you guys next time.